day before. I just checked with him the time and the phone number, Brockman. And then he responded by saying, wear the red gingham dress. It brings out the vein in your forehead. Only Ray Ratto could come up with that text.
Amazing.
How are you, Ray?
I'm fine. Has any NFL team signed any of Lori Laughlin's kids yet?
I don't believe so.
Too soon, Ray.
I don't believe so.
It's not too soon.
Actually, it just happened about an hour ago, Ray.
Yeah. Well, you know what?
Mm-hmm.
It's a faster world out there now.
It is that. The Russ Westbrook thing went like literally 5 minutes after it happened in Utah. I saw it in the palm of my hand on my phone. What's your stance on what happened in Utah last night, Ray?
Well, I keep waiting for the Jazz to do what seems to me to be the obvious thing, which is to come out boldly and aggressively against the fan and behavior like that. Because there's an example in England from over the weekend that hasn't been brought up in the couple of hours that this has gone on, which is a Birmingham fan ran on the field and punched Aston Villa's Jack Grealish during a game.
In the neck from behind. I saw that.
Right. And it seems like we're not that far away from that again. Every once in a while, and it's sort of cyclical, fans have decided that they're not enough of the proceedings. And I get where you could get frustrated because you're paying so much money to get the experience that they're offering you. But you throw that in, you throw in alcohol, you throw in the idea that fans are part of the home court advantage. And it doesn't take very long to go from abusive language to a felony.
Well,
so,
in that respect, Ray, if I can just jump in here, because I'm sure there are some fans that might be thinking this, hearing you say this, or watching it, that the fan did not appear to be drunk and said he didn't say anything wrong, Ray.
Well, okay, but at some point there's a line that's being nudged really hard here, and if there aren't limits, sort of just civil limits that you can obey, whether you're drunk or not, then you're going to get a really blurry line like the one we have here. And at that point, Russell Westbrook's going to get fined for this. I mean, we know that. But, the Jazz have had more than a few incidences of this. And I don't know if it's because the fans there feel like they have to really make it difficult for other teams to play there, or whether there's a more cultural component going on. But it seems to me that an organization as progressive as Utah's has to be sort of a lot more aggressive about this, because this is not the first time their fans have been singled out by players for language that enrages. If this was a first-time incident, maybe you could say, okay, you pull the fan aside and you say, listen, that's not happening again, or you can either sit up in the last row of the arena, or you can just never come again. But this is, this is not a first time for Utah fans. And at some point, you've got to draw a line, or the line's going to get drawn for you by the cops.
Well, what about the NBA drawing a line and getting these fans further away from the action? I mean, they're right on top of it. I mean, just somebody who's, I'm sure, spent many time on press row, Ray. It's all right there.
Yeah.
And it only serves to, obviously, it's great for a kid, or we all know Russ was touched by a kid a couple weeks ago, and his initial reaction was rightfully so. He had no idea who's touching him. It seems like the players are more touchy than ever, and I'm wondering if this is part of the powder keg, for the lack of a better phrase, here.
Well, I mean, the fans have been right next to players for decades. The people who got moved away from court proximity was the media, because they were obviously the big problem. Mm-hmm. So, teams can't charge $2,500 a ticket if they move you back 6 feet or 10 feet or 12 feet. I mean, a Warrior game, I mean, there's nothing but high rollers on that front row. Well, if you don't have wall-to-wall, high rollers, then that second row is anybody who can get something on the secondary ticket market. And that's where they don't sort of have price controls. So you end up taking your chances, and they're not giving that up. There's too much money for teams to make by having their fans right there. And so that's not going to change. What has to change is teams' tolerance for fans crossing that line, and it has to be visible so that players see that something's being done. Conversely, Russell Westbrook doesn't really get to threaten a woman unless the woman can be shown to have been aggressively part of this. And at that point, then you have another debate. But I think the league will obviously take some money from Westbrook, and Westbrook will feel like, okay, that's a price I'm going to pay because I'm going to keep doing this as long as this keeps going on. But at some point, somebody's not going to have that sense of restraint. Somebody's going to go in the stands, and then what have you got? So I think at some point Utah's got to be more not only aggressive but publicly aggressive about dealing with this. And the NBA is going to have to come out, and I would suspect that Adam Silver will do that today because he's usually pretty up on sort of serious issues that come up before him. And he's going to have to make it clear that the line has finally been hit. We've reached the third rail, and the only thing that's left after this is to watch people get electrocuted.
Ray Ratto joining us from the Bay Area on the Rich Eisen Show. Okay, you as being as close to the Warriors campaign as ever. How troublesome is this stretch right now? We've seen DeMarcus Cousins exposed defensively. We've seen the lip reading incident involving Steve Kerr about Draymond Green. And this is what Kerr had to say yesterday when talked about the lip reading that we all saw on Twitter the night before.
Lip readers were wrong. What I said was I beg to differ with Draymond's approach tonight. Those are my exact words. I don't know how somebody misconstrued that. It's modern life. Everything's recorded. Everything is filmed. I've decided I'm now going to get a giant laminated board with all of my play calls, and I'm going to turn into an NFL coach from here on out.
Well, I love Steve Kerr in every way, shape, or form, Ray. He handled it with humor, but the bottom line is that at the very center of all this, that he does appear to be tiring of Draymond Green's approach. How serious is this right now for a Warriors championship run?
It's not that serious, but it does speak to an issue that's been going on with this team for at least a couple of years, if not longer, which is that they seem to be perpetually aggrieved more than most teams by the officials, to the point that sometimes Draymond will just get lost in it. And I think to a lesser extent, DeMarcus Cousins is also guilty of that. That there's this sense that part of Draymond being Draymond is losing his mind about a call here and there. And as a result, he doesn't get benefit of the doubt anymore. And so, they work him far closer to the letter of the law than most players. And Steve Kerr has sort of tried to laugh this off and front this off, but now it's starting to bother him. And I think it's bothering him because the Warriors' sort of margin for beating the hell out of other teams is narrowing. So now they're closer to the kind of team that needs all the advantages it can get. And when you're on the wrong side of the officials, you lose one of those advantages. I mean, they led the league in technical fouls in 2017. They led the league in technical fouls in 2018. They're one behind Oklahoma City in 2019. And I think they've gotten a reputation with officials that they complain about way more than they have business complaining about. And I think that, when Draymond goes off on those sort of momentary rage tangents that sometimes he doesn't pull back out of, I think he starts losing, the thing that makes him good, which is, sort of that aggression. And, he gets frustrated, he gets lost. And I think that's what Kerr was complaining about, because for the most part, he likes Draymond Green. Draymond Green is his kind of player because he was a bit of an RA when he played too.
I
I think that's where we're at now. It's just the Warriors are not playing well enough to be able to indulge themselves, with, this referee's screwing me, or how do I get in, Ed Malloy's grill? That at some point, you'd better be winning by a lot if you want to.
Yeah, I mean, when you say, did we lose Ray right there? I think we lost him right there. Just so you understand, RA did not stand for residence assistant. I think it's the color of red and the posterior. You there still, Ray?
I am here.
Okay, great. I lost him.
I never left.
Yeah,
okay.
I lost him.
Okay, very good. All right, but you're right back there. Okay, so none of this has to do at all with Draymond and Durant back here in Los Angeles that caused Draymond to be suspended one game. I find it hard to believe that that's totally wiped out and that July 1st doesn't loom right now. I mean, it's entirely possible, though, that they are lead pipe wielding championship professionals who can maybe box it up for best they can to make one last run here or another run. And none of that's lingering at all, right?
I don't think so, because it would have shown itself in other areas. The weird thing about the Warriors is, for all their difficulties in keeping the foot closer to the bottom of the pedal, is that they haven't let this linger. I mean, there's no signs that it's lingered. I mean, it may come up again in July when Durant finally decides to leave, if he does. But they've been really good at compartmentalizing their situation. So I think Kerr's frustration with Draymond Green is that Draymond Green's not playing very well this year. This is not the same Draymond Green of the past. He doesn't sort of help them out with the occasional three, so their spacing's a little bit off. And he is, while he's still been good defensively, he hasn't been as good as Draymond Green has been in the past. And when you put that together with all the other things that have sort of beset this otherwise invulnerable team, I think the little things start to get seen more. And when you're getting your hat blocked at home by the Phoenix Suns, everything looks bad.
Last one for you, Ray Ratto. The Raiders signing of Antonio Brown. Is that more for Vegas? What do you make of the Antonio Brown, Trent Brown extravaganza and what Gruden's doing with Mayock to remake this team in Gruden's image here, Mike?
I think that was going to happen either way. I don't know that it's aimed towards Vegas. I mean, that's a happy ancillary. But if you pretend that the Raiders aren't leaving, this is what John Gruden would do anyway, which is spend year one realizing I hate this team and I have to get rid of all the components I can as quickly as possible.
Yes.
And he did that. Now it's time to rebuild. And the Antonio Brown thing is an outlier anyway, because under normal circumstances, a player with his pedigree would not be on the market. Even with a franchise like Pittsburgh, which doesn't like to spend money, and even given the fact that he's tested their patience in about 12 different ways. This is the sort of thing that happened 40 years ago when Al Davis could pick up guys like Lyle Alzado, which is, another team doesn't like a really good player on his team, I'll take him. This is reminiscent of that. And that's why it's so unusual. And Bill Barnwell pointed out that this is such an unusual development that it almost makes no sense and there's almost no precedent for it. But if you take the money component out of it, it's very much a Raider deal in that somebody else got fed up with a really good player. I know, we'll take him. We don't need to fix him. We don't care if he's fixed. We just want him to catch footballs for us.
You know what? I thought the same thing, Ray, over the last 24 hours, that Al Davis would have loved this guy who can stretch the field. We're going to go vertical. We're going to take him. He might have been a guy who created problems in your spot, but he's coming to our spot. It's the silver and black. We're committed to excellence, and let's roll. That's what I thought that for sure.
He would cheerfully have swindled the Pittsburgh Steelers, but I'm sure wherever he is, it irks him that John Gruden did it.
Why is that, Ray? Come on.
Because I don't think he liked Gruden very much, because Gruden and Al Davis are a lot alike. They really are. I mean, I don't know that I mean, the thing to remember about John Gruden is there are two voices in his head at all times. There's the coach who got fed up with Khalil Mack because he didn't show up for any OTAs, and he traded him for pennies on the dollar. And he got rid of Amari Cooper because Derek Carr sort of lost confidence in him. He lost confidence in the team, and it was spiraling out of control. But John Gruden, the general manager and the talent evaluator, would see a guy like Antonio Brown and go, I don't care. I want him. And the fact that Mike Mayock was able to keep the price as low as it was by reading the Steelers correctly that's the big takeaway here. It's not that the Raiders, swindled Pittsburgh, although they did. It's that they were ready to do this. A year ago, I don't think they would have. But I think now Gruden's torn the team down, basically, to the studs and foundation, and now it's time to start rebuilding. And Antonio Brown was a gift from the sky.
It was. We'll see what happens, obviously, this year. Raymond, you're a treasure. Thanks for calling in. Appreciate it.
I didn't call. You called me.
That's true. Thank you. Thank you. Raymond, thank you for accepting my call. Appreciate it. Thank you. That's Ray Ratto.
The Rich Eisen Show, weekdays at noon Eastern on Audience.